Zadondaini, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Final Fantasy, as you can probably tell based off of my background. But more specifically, we are going to be talking about one of the newest additions to Final Fantasy, that being the manga. Their very first manga that is actually about Final Fantasy. Oh my gosh, I honestly am just kind of surprised that this is actually a thing. Oh, but first off, I would like to just briefly say that I am a huge fan of Final Fantasy. So this volume, which is the newest series being added into my collection, is honestly a lot of fun. But if you're not necessarily a Final Fantasy fan, then you might not actually like this series. As one of the main things about this is it's a love letter to fans of the series. And honestly, if you haven't been a fan for a long time, then even then it still might not be as good. For example, I've only played a few of the Final Fantasies. Specifically, I've played 7, 9, 13, 14, and 15. And I have played a little bit of, I believe, 6, but I don't remember exactly if it was 6 or if it was something else. And I've also watched a little bit of 8. I own 12, and my dad plays 11. So, yeah. But even that is still pretty minor. So, yeah. So, first off, when did this come out so that you guys can actually have some good judgments as to what you should probably know if you are going to be getting into this? Firstly, this came out during the Stormblood expansion of Final Fantasy XIV. Specifically mention this because of the fact that the main character is someone who worked for Square Enix, but also played several of their games. In fact, he played all of the Final Fantasies. He specifically shows in the first few minutes of the actual volume that he is playing Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood, which is the expansion right before the current one, which is Shadowbringers. And we're nearing the end of this, so yeah. The exact placement of timelines and stuff is a bit tricky to say, but that is the important thing to know, is that this is during Stormblood. And best guess, this is before they actually revealed the name of the current one, which is Shadowbringers. And the reason I say this is because of the fact that if it was right before Shadowbringers, then they probably would have at least shown that, because of the fact that this way they can actually promote Shadowbringers right before it releases. So placing it a little bit before that timeline would make sense. But yeah. So first off, we should actually talk about this. This is an isekai, which, let's be honest, isekai are just so common nowadays. And in order to really stand out, you have to do something special. So, what does this do? Well, it is about someone who wanted to make a Final Fantasy, and they end up being in that universe. The universe of Final Fantasy, which obviously it's slightly different, but you get the idea. The first thing to note is that it does actually have the races from that of Final Fantasy 14 within it. However, like I said before, it only has those that are currently in during Stormblood, not including that of the Aura. And also, every single race has a different name. I'm not going to go over all of them, but yes. His main party in this series specifically has a Rogadin and an elf. I'm just going to call them elves instead of Elzen for basically because it's the easiest thing, as well as a human. And obviously he's going to be human, and so is his sister, who is also another main character. But there are still Makote equivalents and Lalafell equivalents, so there's that. Um, but basically, the story begins with him and his sister returning home, talking about how they want to create their own Final Fantasy, because they've kind of been stagnating while working at Square Enix. But as as they're heading home, they both get hit by a truck, which means, yes, it's the return of Truck-kun. If you guys don't get that reference, basically a lot of people make fun of the fact that a lot of isekai start by having a truck hit the main protagonist. This is the same with Jobless Reincarnation, Zombieland Saga, and so on and so forth. It happens a lot, and it's ridiculous. So, yeah, he and his sister get hit by a truck and are reincarnated as their full selves into that of the world of Final Fantasy. Obviously, it's a different world from what they're used to, but come on, every single Final Fantasy is in a different universe. But we're not going to get into that right now. So yeah, so basically the characters wake up in this new world, and they find out that, oh, there's a Moogle, and now we're in this world. The characters then team up with this team of adventurers, this pretty low-level team of adventurers, and basically are there to train the group. And they are learning over time how everything works, and they work together to figure out exactly what's going to be going on for this entire world, how they got there, and all of that stuff. But suddenly, a crazy event happens, and freaking... there's a little girl who is attacked by a freaking dragon. Or a little kid who is surrounded by a terrible dragon. And as such, the characters run in to save the kid. And they succeed in saving the kid at a pretty big price. Yeah, the Yuko, who is the sister of the main character, frickin' dies right away. And, of course, because of the fact that this is a Final Fantasy world, out of desperation, Shugo, I believe that's his name, Shugo, starts saying, please use rays, please even a rise or a phoenix feather or a phoenix down. Any of these will please work. And every single person just goes, those are spells from fairy tales. These spells do not exist in their world at all, as far as they're aware. And it's terrible. He is destroyed. All that remains of his sister is a single crystal. And as we all know, crystals are pretty important in Final Fantasy, so I'm not going to get into that whole situation. But all that remains of her is her soul crystal. And he doesn't know what to do. He's destroyed. And then, while the rest of the team are trying to cheer him up by any means necessary to just help him get out of this funk and to move on with his life, because there's literally nothing that he can do, he realizes something. Something has kind of been there in the background for a little while. Basically, every now and again, he would see these pop-up windows that would basically be like notifications in things like Final Fantasy XIV and stuff like that. They pop up, and it explains something about whatever he's looking at. And he notices, while they're at a picnic, just trying to calm down and get him back on his feet, he notices the exact ingredients of the meal that they're having and shocks everyone with it. And he realizes very quickly that it is a classic spell from Final Fantasy, that of Libra. And when he explains that, everyone freaks out, because that is another spell from fairy tales. And as such, they start to realize that with that, if they can actually learn how to properly use that spell, they may be able to find several other of these super powerful fairy tale spells and possibly find a raise or a rise and bring Yuko back. And honestly, I love this. It is honestly such a great start to an honestly great manga. I've said, I've only got the first volume, but already I am making this show some love because this is amazing. So much story in so little time, and it's honestly amazing. And after they've actually learned how to use the spell a bit, they start to understand that certain foods and drinks are actually more beneficial to certain other people. And as such, it allows them to get better equipped and all this jazz. And then there is the frickin' large scale raid. Basically, everyone is gearing up to face off against the exact dragon that killed Yuko. And as such, all of our main characters want in on this raid, and they are going to join it. They are going to help, and they are going to destroy this thing because they want revenge. And so, in order to get into it, they start by going off and killing a coral by themselves, which was one of those monsters that they had never been able to do before. But now that they are actually able to learn things together and work together, and they they have Shugo to basically explain certain things to them with his Libra ability and all of his Final Fantasy knowledge, he's now able to help them out, and all together they can continue their adventure, taking revenge on this dragon, and then eventually finding these spells by getting a lot of money together and going to find someone who is very likely to actually know the information. And honestly, I am so excited to read the next volume. And you can expect that I will be talking more about this series in the future. Once I've actually got caught up with it, I do want to actually start making a volume review series for Final Fantasy. Oh, it's honestly one of the greatest Final Fantasies yet. Honestly, Final Fantasies have been a big part of my life basically my entire life. I mean, I still absolutely love the frickin' why am I forgetting its name? I honestly don't know why I'm forgetting its name, but the Final Fantasy movie, I'm constantly forgetting it, but it's one of the best movies that was ever made, honestly. But there's the Final Fantasy movie. There are all of the different Final Fantasies from obviously 1 all the way up to 15, and each of them have been a huge part of my life. Square has created some of the best games that we can ever imagine, and with this series, it is a love letter to these fans to show them basically that they hear them and they are giving them a manga that's basically just full of fun little things, but continues to have a fantastic story, just as good as some of the early Final Fantasies, as well as obviously the MMO. The MMO has a great story. If you guys haven't played 14, please go play it because it's really good and has a great story. But yeah, Lost Stranger, Final Fantasy is amazing. And if you are looking for a good manga to start looking at, then I do actually suggest this. It honestly does have some really great moments and has some good character development. And that's just the first volume. So, yeah. Obviously, I'm going to be talking more about this series as I read it. And honestly, I hope that you guys will be excited to see more about this. And maybe I'll even start talking more about actual Final Fantasy. You never know. Maybe more specifically, April? you can expect a video in April, but I'm not going to tell you when. So look forward to that, as well as look forward to the cool stuff that's going to be coming in March, also about Final Fantasy. So yeah, but anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, or even if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, because it really does help out a lot more than you think. And of course, if you want to support the channel even more, then definitely head down to the description and check out all of our links down there, including our social medias and ways you can support us financially, including our Patreon and our merch store, which, yeah, seriously, we do actually have some decent merch in there, so please do buy some merch. And of course, if you have any thoughts or theories, please leave them down in the comments below. If you are going to leave a theory, make sure to say theory review somewhere in your comment. And of course, if you... I've already said the things about the description, but anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja, and I will see you guys in the next video. But on!